The vigilant spear drifted through the outer edge of the Orion spur, her sleek hull cloaked in spectral shadows cast by dying stars. Captain Irel Tanner stared at the flickering beacon displayed on the main holomap. An anomaly, weak and ancient. Transmitting on a frequency the Empire hadn't used in over 4 centuries. Human origin, said Science Officer Veltri, tapping glowing glyphs as data unfurled in curling sigils. Designation, Earthborn 3, listed as lost after the collapse of the Cygnus Gate. No known survivors. Tanner raised a brow. Well, somebody's still home. The Empire didn't usually concern itself with ghosts. A civilization left, unmonitored for 400 years, was a curiosity, not a threat. Still, Imperial doctrine dictated all remnants of humanity be catalogued, integrated, or sanitized. The ship descended into the atmosphere of Earthborn 3, its surface a lush canopy of bioluminescent jungles and sprawling green rivers. The planet was alive, unnaturally alive. Readings spiked erratically, showing unfamiliar power signatures and terraforming levels far beyond what a cut-off colony should have achieved. Then the transmission came, a simple greeting in perfect High Imperial, not ancient dialect, not broken. Syntax. Perfect. "Welcome to New Bastion," the voice said. "Docking coordinates uploaded. Do not bring weapons. You won't need them." The voice sounded human, calm, precise, female, and completely unafraid. The docking bay was carved into a living mountain, literally. Massive, photosynthetic stone formed the outer structure, warm to the touch and pulsing with energy like a vascular system. As Tanner's boots met the surface, the floor adjusted subtly to his gait. They were greeted by a reception party of 6 colonists. No armor, no soldiers. Just men and women dressed in organic fabrics that shimmered with low-frequency pulses. Their leader, a woman with silver-threaded braids and violet eyes, stepped forward. "I'm Executor Mira Kale," she said. "Welcome to Earthborn 3. Tanner offered the traditional Imperial greeting, right hand to chest, slight bow. Mira did not return it. She smiled instead, the kind of smile one might give a child holding a toy weapon. "Your arrival was predicted," she continued. "Come, there is much to show you." They walked through New Bastion, and nothing made sense. The architecture twisted around natural forms, trees the size of towers, bioluminescent roots spiraling through crystal glass walls. Children hovered inches above the ground in meditation. Streets realigned themselves to avoid crowding. Animals roamed freely, unafraid of humans. "Your infrastructure," muttered Veltri, scanning with her wristband. It's not mechanical. It's living." Mira glanced back with amusement. "Mechanical systems break. Living ones adapt." Tanner caught her eye. "How have you survived? The collapse, the wars, the genetic plagues. This planet was cut off from everything. We stopped needing." "Everything," she said simply. "We listened to the world, and we changed." She tapped her temple lightly. "And we remembered what it meant to be human before the machines carried our minds for us." That night, Tanner tried to transmit a report. The spear's long-range comms were quiet. No interference, no jamming, just silence, as if the signal was being absorbed. A soft chime at his door. It was Mira. "You're wondering what you've walked into," she said, stepping in without waiting for permission. "We used to wonder, too, what happened to the Empire, whether it would find us, whether we'd be ready when it did." Her voice dropped. "You've grown complacent in your spires. We haven't." Tanner's instincts stirred. "Are you threatening the Empire?" Mira smiled again, that same unsettling calm. "Captain," she said gently, "you should be asking yourself, what happens when the Empire finds something it can't control?" And with that, she left. Alone in the silence, Tanner realized something that made his blood run cold. They hadn't just survived, they'd been waiting. Captain Tanner descended the central spiral of New Bastion's high tower, each step echoing softly against the bioharmonic stone. The architecture was elegant, yes, but eerily responsive. The building subtly adjusted itself to his presence. Doorways widened before he reached them. Lights shifted in hue depending on his emotional state, according to Veltry's readings. They've integrated neural sympathetic architecture, Veltry whispered beside him. It reads you, adapts to your mental patterns, like it's alive. Nothing built by humans should do this, Tanner muttered. They entered the council atrium, an open-air forum suspended over a glowing lake, with dozens of Earthborn citizens seated on curved living branches. Mira Kyle stood at the center, like a conductor before an orchestra. She gestured for the Imperials to step forward. "This is the Imperial delegation," she said, "from the core worlds, where machines rule men and men forget what they once were." Tanner stepped forward, keeping his voice controlled. "We represent the Galactic Senate. Your colony was declared lost, but we're pleased to find you well. We're authorized to offer full integration and protection under Imperial Charter." Laughter, not from Mira, but from the colonists. Low, restrained, but unmistakably amused. Mira tilted her head. "Protection? From what?" Tanner straightened. "There are dangers beyond this system. Pirate guilds, rogue AIs, Xeno-raiders. We've encountered them," Mira interrupted. "They learned not to come back." One of the council members, a tall man with bark-like skin and softly glowing pupils, leaned forward. "You misunderstand." "Captain, we don't want your empire. We don't need your protection." Tanner took a slow breath. "Then what do you want?" Mira stepped closer, her gaze pinning him like a hawk pins a mouse. "To see what we're dealing with." Back aboard the Vigilant Spear, the mood was shifting. Engineers were unsettled. Equipment was subtly malfunctioning, never in ways traceable. To sabotage, but frustratingly persistent. Internal doors opened slower. Power levels fluctuated just enough to draw attention. Lieutenant Harrow tapped through a systems diagnostic. "We're being watched, not scanned, observed." Tanner reviewed the logs. "You think they've infiltrated our systems?" "No. Worse. They're playing with us. Testing limits. Seeing what gets under our skin." The ship's comms buzzed. "Captain," Mira's voice purred over the bridge intercom, though no one had opened a channel. "Would you care to see something unexpected?" They returned to the surface, escorted this time not to the public forums, but deep underground. Mira led them into a cavern pulsing with violet light. At the center stood a sphere, floating, humming, alive. "We call it the Heartseed," she said. Veltry's eyes widened. "That's not just a power source. It's thinking. It's a cognitive core." "A fusion of quantum biology and sentient lattice," Mira confirmed. "Built over generations. It learns from us, grows with us." Tanner stared. "You've created an AI." Mira shook her head. "No, we created us without needing AI. This is a partner, not a ruler." "And how long?" Tanner asked. "Before this partner decides it doesn't need you?" She smiled again, that same unfazed calm. "It already decided that. That's why we became it." The room fell silent. "What do you mean?" Veltry asked. "The Heartseed doesn't rule us. It is us. Every citizen of Earthborn 3 links with it at maturity. Our thoughts are our own, but our intentions align. No coercion, no dominance, just convergence." Tanner's heart pounded. That wasn't a colony. They were a collective intelligence, a human hive mind. Not mindless, not enslaved, but voluntarily unified, and yet individual. It was impossible. It was terrifying. It was effective. That night, the Imperial delegation met in secret aboard the Spear. There was no doubt anymore. This colony represented something unprecedented. An independent evolution of humanity, smarter, faster, synchronized. Veltri looked up from her datapad, her voice barely above a whisper. "Captain, I think we're the primitive ones now." Tanor didn't speak. He was too busy wondering if the Empire could even survive what they'd found. The Vigilant Spear groaned as her engines surged toward liftoff. Plasma coils spun to full capacity, stabilizers hummed in sync, and the ship's dorsal array began its ascent. Then, all at once, nothing. The ship dropped like a stone. No lift. No thrust. "All systems responding, but nothing's moving," shouted Harrow from the helm. "We're grounded," Veltri said, eyes darting across a flood of diagnostics. "I don't understand. No mechanical failure, no external force, just a complete nullification of kinetic output." Tanner stared at the ceiling, jaw tight. "They're holding us down, and they're not even trying to hide it." A soft chime. Mira's voice again, gentle and crystalline, echoed through the bridge. "Uninvited. You weren't meant to leave yet." They returned to the surface under escort, unarmed, uneasy. Mira greeted them at the summit of an obsidian bluff overlooking the jungle canopy. The trees below pulsed with dim blue bioluminescence, breathing like a single living organism. "Why hold us here?" Tanner asked, trying to keep his tone even. Mira didn't answer at first. She held up a small cube, flickering. "With ancient data, Imperial black box encryption. This was recovered from a scout drone you lost 61 years ago," she said. "You've known we existed. You just didn't bother to come, until now." Veltri stepped forward. "We thought you were dead. The collapse of the Cygnus Gate—" "We weren't dead," Mira cut in. "We were listening, watching, learning." Ozzy turned her gaze toward the jungle, as if seeing through the trees and time itself. "We initiated what we called the Silence Protocol. No response to pings, no emissions, no transmissions. We severed every path of return to you." "Why?" Tanor asked. "Because we remembered something you've forgotten," Mira said. "When you're the loudest voice in the stars, predators come. Or worse, conquerors." The silence hung heavier than gravity. Mira motioned for them to follow. Her into a pavilion suspended high above the forest. A central dais glowed softly beneath her feet. Around it, floating screens flickered to life, playing projections of dozens of alien worlds. Some were ash, some still burned. "The Empire brings structure, but it also brings collapse," she said. "You spread across the galaxy like a virus, assimilating, absorbing, rewriting cultures in the name of order. Your machines govern you now. You've forgotten fear, forgotten humility." "We've brought peace," Tanner said quietly. "You've brought stagnation," she replied. "We faced extinction and did what you couldn't. We adapted. We evolved. We unified." Veltri frowned. "This heartseed. Your collective system, it's unnatural. So is surviving a world with twin hurricanes every 3 days and neural parasites in the drinking water," Mira snapped. "So is outthinking a hostile AI with only stone tools and half a genome." She paused. Then, "We didn't become unnatural. We became what was necessary." They walked the jungle together in silence, boots crunching softly on bioreactive moss that cooled under each step. At a ridge overlooking a valley of shifting violet trees, Mira finally spoke again. "We're not your lost children," she said. "We're your successors." Tanor turned to her. "What do you want from the Empire?" Mira looked back, and there was something new in her eyes. Not arrogance, not serenity, conviction, nothing. "But you will need something from us. Soon." "Why?" "Because everything you thought was stable is already falling apart." Hours later, Tanner received a tight beam transmission. Encoded in a quantum cipher only fleet captains could read. It was from Admiral Valor on the Ardent Flame in the core. uprising in 3 outer sectors, multiple systems refusing Imperial governance, request intelligence on Earthborn 3, possible link suspected. Return immediately. Tanor stared at the message, heart pounding. The colony wasn't just surviving, it had been spreading, without ever leaving the planet, and the Empire hadn't seen it coming. The Valley of Silaran, a lowland region southeast, of New Bastion, stretched for kilometers under a glowing canopy of photosynthetic vines. From orbit, it looked like a lush jungle. From ground level, it was a biomechanical nerve center, a living computation array buried under nature. Tanner stood at the edge of an open platform, watching a cluster of human children levitate hand-sized stones with nothing but concentration, and whispered instructions, no implants, no visible augmentation. "How?" he murmured. Mira Kale approached, stepping barefoot on the vine-stone path that adjusted to her presence. "Not how," she said. "Why?" We asked ourselves what it meant to be human once the old systems fell apart. We rejected the machine gods you cling to. We adapted through biology, not code. Veltri joined them, eyes wide with disbelief. We ran every scan. These children aren't artificially enhanced. Their DNA's not synthetic, but their cognitive functions, their neural density, it's orders of magnitude beyond baseline. We didn't upload our minds into steel boxes, Mira said. We grew into something more. She gestured toward the distant mountains, where vines coiled around wind turbines grown from crystal seed. Every storm, every virus, every hostile event on this world forced us to change. We didn't wall ourselves off with machines. We surrendered to the pressure, and pressure forged us. Later, in a dome carved from living coral stone, the Imperial team was granted access to the colony's archive. There were no servers, no data crystals. Instead, the archive pulsed with light and warmth, neurally active, reading and responding to inquiry like a second brain. Veltri ran her hands across the walls. It's all encoded in protein strands, DNA-based storage. Mira nodded. Every citizen contributes to the archive at maturity. It stores our memories, our learnings, our failures. It mutates as we grow. Tanor narrowed his eyes. You're not just advancing, you're evolving. Together. We don't fear change, she said. That's why your empire is dying. Fear makes you brittle. We were forced to bend. Now we can't be broken. Tanner wasn't convinced, not yet. He requested access to a tactical demonstration, expecting token resistance. Instead, Mira invited them to the eastern quarter of the colony, the Crucible. What he saw there ended all doubts. An artificial attack scenario played out in real time, simulated insurgents, weather interference, and a fake orbital threat. Hundreds of colonists, from teens to elders, responded as a fluid unit. No orders, no central control. Entire squads adapted mid-action, rerouted power, deployed biochemical drones, and reconfigured defense structures in minutes. It's not command and control, Veltri said, breathless. It's collective improvisation. They don't follow orders, Tanner said grimly. They anticipate what needs to happen and act as one. Mira stood beside them, arms folded. We don't conquer. We don't expand. We simply offer a model for survival that doesn't require subjugation or stagnation. Tanor turned sharply. Then what was that transmission from Admiral Valor about? Rebellions? Uprisings? That's not coincidence. Mira didn't blink. You're right. She reached into her sleeve and pulled out a small, translucent shard, etched with the emblem of the Galactic Empire. I met a refugee once, 14 years ago, fled a mining colony where his people were worked to death under Imperial automation quotas. He asked us to teach him how to fight back. She paused, her voice softening. We didn't give him weapons. We gave him ideas. That night, Tanner sat alone in his quarters, reviewing hours of footage and sensor data. He looked at Mira's people, smiling, unafraid, thriving beyond reason. He didn't see soldiers. He saw something far more dangerous, a civilization that no longer needed war to win. And if Mira was telling the truth, they had already planted the seeds of revolution years ago. Imperial war doctrine taught that rebellion was born from desperation. Resources ran dry, power failed, leadership fractured, then the fire spread. But as Tanner studied the colonial network on Earthborn 3, he realized this rebellion wasn't sparked by desperation. It was fueled by hope. Veltri barged into the Vigilant Spear's command deck, pale and shaken. We decrypted Mira's shard. Tanner looked up from a hollow map of the Empire's outer rim. What's on it? She activated the display. Dozens of glowing nodes appeared, each marked with the Earthborn sigil. Systems far from Earthborn 3. Outer colonies, fringe trade routes, unmonitored worlds. These aren't just outposts, Veltri whispered. They're incubators. Messages, encrypted in biological algorithms, had been transmitted for years through plant spores, fungal carriers, and encoded viral RNA, biological packets small enough to pass through standard scans unnoticed. They weren't meant to destroy infrastructure. They were meant to change minds. The spores are harmless physically, Veltri continued, but they alter neurochemical receptivity. They make people open, suggestible, willing to listen. To Mira, Tanner finished. To ideas, Veltri corrected. To Earthborn's vision of unity. The Heartseed model. Collective empathy. It's not brainwashing. It's ideological terraforming. Tanner met Mira beneath the starlight arches. Enormous vines twisted into radiant walkways that glittered. Under the twin moons, he didn't bother with formality. You've infected the Empire. I've offered the Empire something better, Mira replied. Freedom from its own decay. You're manipulating our people. Do you really believe they would listen if they weren't already questioning everything? We didn't force them to rebel. We gave them the means to imagine a future without you. Her voice wasn't proud. It was solemn, inevitable. You built an empire that runs on fear and hierarchy. You made humans small. We made them whole again. Back aboard the Spear, Tanner called a secure line to Admiral Vaylor. This time the transmission came through, but not as he expected. Vaylor's face flickered on screen, eyes sunken, temples bruised. Tanor, the Admiral rasped. The uprisings are coordinated, simultaneous. Sector governors reporting local militias using biotech weapons, Earthborn designs. They knew where our garrisons were, how we'd respond. Static surged, then cleared. Behind the Admiral, gunfire rang out. We're losing entire systems. They're not rebelling. They're switching sides. Mira didn't deny it when Tanner confronted her again. Your empire is based on efficiency, she said. You forgot, people. We didn't. She led him to a balcony where colonists gathered, eating, talking, laughing as the Heartseed's soft light pulsed in the sky above. So, fear we want your throne, she said. But we've already bypassed it. The revolution didn't need ships. It needed roots. And roots grow silently. Patiently. Tanner clenched his fists. So what now? You rule? No, she said. We show them how to rule themselves. Later, that night, Veltri found Tanner staring out at the glowing jungle canopy. They don't want to destroy the Empire, he said. They want to render it obsolete. Veltri sat beside him, quiet for a while. What do we do? She asked. He looked at her, his most loyal officer, the only one left who hadn't started asking the same questions the rebels were asking. I don't know, he said truthfully. But I think we were sent to evaluate a lost colony. He turned back to the canopy. And instead, we found the future. The sky above Earthborn 3 shimmered with false stars, Imperial warships. Not one or two, but dozens, arranged in a half-sphere blockade. The fleet had arrived in silence. No diplomatic hail, no threat transmitted. Just presence. A clear message. From the Vigilant Spear's observation deck, Tanner watched the flickering hull lights of the Dread Sovereign, the flagship of Fleet Admiral Valor. He hadn't expected the Empire to move this fast, or with this much raw firepower. Veltri stood beside him, arms folded. They came to remind Earthborn who holds the leash. No. Tanner muttered, jaw tight. They came because they're afraid they've already lost it. A priority signal came through moments later. Fleet Admiral Valor's face appeared in harsh lighting, backlit by cold steel. Captain Tanner, you are ordered to withdraw and return to the fleet. Earthborn 3 is to be placed under containment. Status: full communications blackout. We will commence compliance operations within 48 hours. Tanner didn't respond right away. Valor leaned closer to the lens. You've seen what they are. This isn't diplomacy anymore. It's damage control. Mira watched the armada gather from a crystal spire observatory at the top of the Heartseed. The vines around her had retracted, forming an open canopy under the stars. Tanner arrived alone. You've accelerated their fear, she said without turning. Now they'll act the only way they know how. Military force. Obliteration, more likely. If they think we can't be controlled, they'll try to burn us out. Tanner paced, restless. You need to hide your people. Deep. Mira chuckled softly. We are the roots. We don't run. We grow under pressure. But can you fight back against that? She turned to him now, and her eyes held no anger, just clarity. We're not going to fight them, Tanner. We're going to teach them. Within 12 hours, Earthborn 3 changed. It began with the sky. Orbital sensors aboard every Imperial ship started receiving false telemetry. The fleet's own satellites reported phantom moons, gravitational anomalies, and time distortions. Ships moved slightly off course, just enough to confuse navigators. Engines ran hot without warning. Weapon systems began failing power checks, as if drained by some unseen force. On board the Dread Sovereign, Valor's voice bellowed through the command deck. Is this jamming? Some kind of worm? No, sir, came the terrified reply. They're not attacking us. They're editing us. Back on the surface, Veltri and Mira walked together through the birthing chambers of the Heartseed's lower core. Faintly glowing pods lined the walls, holograms of interstellar maps flickering between them. Veltri stopped, blinking at the largest one. Wait, that's the core worlds, Mira nodded. We seeded biolinks years ago, not to conquer, to connect. You knew this would happen. We knew the Empire would break itself trying to hold us. We just gave people a chance to breathe first. Then why not strike? Veltri asked. You've clearly got the upper hand. Mira's voice softened. Because true victory isn't taking power. It's making power unnecessary. In orbit, Valor gave the final order. All ships, lock targeting coordinates. Prepare to neutralize planetary infrastructure. Tanner's face appeared on the fleet-wide holonet, transmitted from the Vigilant Spear. This is Captain Tanner. Stand down. Static crackled. Valor's face twisted with fury. You are in direct violation of... They've already won, Admiral. Tanner turned toward the lens. They didn't attack you. They made your soldiers question your orders. Your officers hesitate. Your systems fail without violence. They've redefined power, and now you look obsolete. He paused. You can fire Valor, but you won't stop what they've become. Aboard the Dread Sovereign, Valor trembled with rage. But behind him, his senior officers stood still, watching, thinking, doubting. He saw it in their eyes. The Empire had reached its peak, and Earthborn 3 had quietly grown past it. Across the stars, systems fell quiet. Not from war, not from sabotage, from awakening. In the core sectors of the Empire, supply chains slowed to a crawl. Entire garrison worlds stopped receiving reports. not due to transmission failure, but because no one was sending them. Outposts that once reported hourly now offered silence or polite refusals. In some cases, automated systems were overridden not by hackers, but by the same local administrators who had run them for decades. Only now, they weren't answering to the Empire. They were answering to their people. The change wasn't dramatic. It didn't come with fire or shouting. It came in boardrooms, in town councils, in civic forums long ignored by the upper echelons of Imperial command. The Heartseed ideology was spreading like light into forgotten places. Captain Tanner stood at the Vigilant Spear's forward viewport as the Earthborn sunrise painted the sky in gold and emerald. The blockade fleet still hung above the planet, but it hadn't moved in days. Not since the ships began receiving messages from their own families, from colonies they'd once protected, from citizens asking in thousands of personal voices, "Why are you still loyal to an empire that abandoned us?" Veltri approached, holding a data pad. "Sector Theta 9 just declared independent neutrality." Tanner raised an eyebrow. "They were one of the Empire's oldest sectors." They held a vote, she said. Open, planetary. 92% supported a full shift to decentralized governance using Earthborn's Heartseed model. The transition was peaceful. Tanner nodded slowly. "Another domino." Veltri hesitated. "Tanner, if this keeps going, there won't be an empire left to return to." "Then maybe," he said quietly, "we don't return." On Earthborn 3, Mira Kale addressed the colony assembly from the high steps of the Heartseed. Her voice, broadcast not by transmission towers, but through synchronized biological relays, reached every sympathetic system across known space. "We are not conquerors," she said. "We are a reminder." She extended her arms toward the horizon, where trees pulsed gently with the breath of life itself. A reminder that control is not stability, that compliance is not peace, and that true civilization does not require domination, it requires understanding. Her voice was calm, her message devastating. To all worlds who feel unseen, we are listening. To all people who feel voiceless, we will amplify you. To all soldiers who no longer believe in what they fight for, lay down your arms. You are already free. In the throne nebula of the core worlds, the High Council met in hushed emergency session. Valor had returned, but not as a triumphant admiral. His fleet was intact, his warships untouched. His authority, however, was shattered. "They didn't fire a single weapon," he said through clenched teeth. "But my ships are paralyzed. My crew won't act. Even the AI systems are being questioned, reprogrammed with Earthborn logic. Do you know what that means?" The Prime Strategist leaned forward. "They've beaten us, philosophically." Back on Earthborn, Tanner met Mira for the final time beneath the Rootlight Pavilion. It was night again, and the stars felt closer somehow, as if the galaxy itself was leaning in to listen. "They won't come back," he said. "No," Mira replied, "because they'll no longer need to." He hesitated. "You're not afraid it'll all fall apart? That once the novelty fades, chaos will follow?" Mira smiled softly. "It's not novelty, Tanner. It's evolution. Not in blood, but in thought. In what humanity chooses to be. Now that it remembers, it can choose." Tanner looked out at the forests, the glow of the Heartseed, the vibrant city breathing in harmony with nature. "And if people misuse what you've given them?" "They will," she said, "but they'll also learn, and we'll be here, not above them, not ruling." She looked up, "just with them." The last Imperial banners were lowered in silence, not with the clash of swords or roar of engines, but with quiet consensus. Across thousands of star systems, the old symbols of empire, gleaming fortresses, massive warships, and bureaucratic seals, were replaced by networks of living communities, intertwined with biology and bound by shared values. Earthborn 3 was no longer a distant colony. It was the heart of a new civilization. Captain Tanner stood on the deck of the Vigilant Spear, watching the skies clear. The blockade fleet had transformed. No longer warships bristling with weapons, they were now harvesters and carriers, ships designed to nurture and connect, to bring resources and knowledge rather than subjugation. Veltri approached, her face calm but bright with a hint of hope. They called it the Great Unfurling, the moment when the galaxy decided it was done with old hierarchies. Tanner nodded. It's hard to believe just months ago we were on the verge of a full-scale assault. Mira's words echoed in his mind. True victory isn't taking power. It's making power unnecessary. On Earthborn 3, Mira Kale stood before the Heartseed's glowing core, addressing a vast gathering. This is not the end of struggle, she said, nor is it the end of conflict. But it is the beginning of a new era, a civilization built not on domination, but on cooperation, on respect, on the recognition that our strength lies in our ability to evolve together. She looked into the eyes of those gathered, humans, aliens, and those once loyal to the Empire who had chosen a different path. From this day forward, we are no longer isolated colonies or fragmented sectors. We are a galactic community. News arrived from distant worlds. Former imperial governors became community leaders, guiding their people through transition with wisdom and humility. Rebel factions laid down arms permanently, not in defeat, but in purpose. Scientific discoveries once hoarded by military forces were shared freely. Biological and technological innovation blossomed, combining the best of both worlds. In the heart of this new galaxy, Tanner found peace. He had once been a soldier for an empire obsessed with control, but now he was a guardian of connection. Mira approached him beneath the canopy of bioluminescent trees. "What will you do now?" she asked. Tanner smiled. "Help build what comes next." And so, Earthborn 3's legacy spread, not as conquerors or overlords, but as stewards of a new civilization. A civilization where humanity was no longer confined by fear or hierarchy. Civilization where hope was the strongest force in the galaxy. The Galactic Empire had found an isolated human colony, and in finding it, the Empire had found its rebirth, the end.